There's ash coming down and the fire was raging.
One of Canada's most stunning national parks evacuated and under threat this Tuesday night.
We were all terrified.
How hard it is getting out of Jasper, and where will thousands of people go? The Democrats' high hopes for Kamala Harris. Can she set herself apart from Joe Biden and defeat Donald Trump?
Donald Trump wants to take our country backward.
A record high number of asylum seekers in Canada, where they're coming from, and fears a Trump White House could fuel a new influx. And the grateful thread.
Thankfully, we're still here.
The Canadian family business stitching success for a century.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Thousands of people are on the move as a wildfire rages through Jasper National Park in Alberta, one of Canada's most treasured and popular parks, and it's happening at the height of tourist season. People had just hours to pack up and hit the road, told they needed to leave the park by 3 a.m. The only route out packed with vehicles and shrouded in thick smoke. Flames are closing in on Jasper. One fire is just about 12 kilometers away from the town. About 25,000 residents and visitors got the emergency alert late last night. They were all forced to take Highway 16 west to BC because wildfires blocked escape routes to the east and south. Heather Yourex-West has our top story tonight.
A dream vacation coming to a nightmarish end in Jasper National Park.
I think we were all terrified, but yeah, I think we just had to keep their spirits up. So we kept on going until we reached to a safer place and we knew we were safe.
An evacuation order came late Monday night with word that a nearby wildfire was approaching the town with dangerous speed. Thousands of residents and visitors were ordered to go.
I was figuring that it was going to take a lot to get 10,000 people and campers and whatnot out of the town, because there was cars coming from the south and we were all going in one direction.
With only one way out of town via Highway 16 west to BC, the evacuation was slow going, but ultimately safe and steady.
It was inevitable. Like, it's so dry, and yeah, it was just a matter of time.
A prolonged heat wave across Western Canada has seen fire activity explode in recent weeks. Most of this season's blazes ignited in July alone, and officials fear the situation could grow more serious in the days ahead.
We're preparing for challenging conditions today as a cold front moves in from BC and the winds are going to shift. This will change the intensity of several of the wildfires in Alberta, as well as the direction that they may be moving.
The fire now burns just kilometers from the Jasper town site, but the evacuation order covers the entire national park. An international tourist destination, officials believe up to 25,000 people may have been displaced.
It's amazing and absolutely terrifying all at the same time. As a prairie boy, don't get to see stuff like this, and I don't really think I ever want to see it again.
With so many fires in BC, Jasper evacuees have been asked to continue on to Alberta. Reception centers have been opened in Grand Prairie and here in Calgary, a more than 10-hour drive from where many spent Monday night. Donna?
That is a long journey. Heather Yourex-West in Calgary, thanks. Alissa Thibault is in Clearwater, BC, where people who spent hours in their vehicles ended up. Alissa, how are people holding up?
Oh, as you can imagine, Donna, it's been a long and very uncomfortable night for a lot of people. We've spoken with families who have slept in their cars. There are RVs parked all over here in Clearwater. One of the parking lots where we are here, we've seen tour buses from Jasper. The restaurants and gas stations are all full. People, though, surprisingly in quite good spirits, considering they've probably had hardly any sleep. But you can still see the smoke from here. You can taste it, you can smell it. And people have been describing just how scary it was leaving Jasper so quickly.
There's ash coming down from the sky. We made the decision and we just kind of left as soon as we could.
We've got kids in the car and it's me and my brother driving. We're switching off and on, so it is definitely scary. There's ash coming down and the fire was raging.
And Alissa, these people have now made it to BC, but they're being told not to go any further west because there are too many fires in BC. It's a real dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely. The next major stop along the highway from here is Kamloops, but there were already evacuees there from another wildfire that's burning in BC's Fraser Canyon. It's really hard to escape the wildfire situation that is happening right now. It is a very dynamic situation facing both BC and Alberta at the same time. Donna.
All right, Alissa Thibault in Clearwater, BC, thank you. Jasper, west of Edmonton, is the largest national park in the Canadian Rockies, more than 11,000 square hectares. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and attracts about 2 million visitors a year. About 5,000 people live in the town of Jasper, but there can be as many as 12,000 seasonal workers there every year. In Southern California, investigators are searching for suspects after fireworks sparked a fast-moving wildfire that destroyed $10 million worth of property. The fire started Sunday afternoon in Riverside, about an hour east of Los Angeles, and spread quickly. 6 homes were destroyed. 7 others have been badly damaged. Fireworks are illegal in Riverside because it is so hot and dry. Temperatures are hovering close to 40 degrees Celsius there, and more than 20 wildfires are burning across California. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is in full campaign mode now that she's got the support from multiple Democrats to be their candidate for president. President Joe Biden intends to explain his decision to step away in an address to the nation tomorrow, and Harris's challenge is to set herself apart from him. She's certainly got money and enthusiasm behind her, but is she the fresh face who can beat Donald Trump? Our Washington bureau chief, Jackson Proskow, reports.
In her first rally as presumptive nominee, Kamala Harris laid out her plan of attack in Milwaukee, the same city where Donald Trump accepted the Republican nomination just days earlier.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
It will be a race of contrasts, a former prosecutor versus a convicted felon, a comparatively young candidate versus the oldest in history, both from back-to-back administrations.
I promise you, I will proudly put my record against his any day of the week.
The switch-up has energized Democrats.
She said she would work to earn the support of our party, and boy, has she done so in quick order.
In just 2 days, Harris raised a record-breaking $100 million from small donors, while her campaign has attracted 30,000 volunteers. That kind of enthusiasm had evaded Joe Biden.
Will Harris have access to the type of support from donors, both large and small, that's going to allow her to fund the campaign at an optimal level from now to November 5th? I think that's the question.
In this new race, Republicans are still trying to find their footing. So far, they're painting Harris as an extension of Biden's damaged presidency.
We love this. We love that Kamala Harris is at the top of the ticket.
I will stress again for the American people, do you think it's going to be any different with Kamala Harris?
Biden's role on the campaign trail is now uncertain. He returned to Washington after recovering from COVID ahead of his address to the nation Wednesday, where he'll outline his reasons for bowing out of the campaign and for backing Harris. Early polling makes the case for Biden's exit crystal clear. He was behind Trump nationally and in key swing states. An Ipsos poll released Tuesday shows Kamala Harris is already 2 points ahead. That's within the margin of error, suggesting this is back to being a close race. Donna.
All right, Jackson in Washington, thanks. A lot can change in a day, as the American Secret Service has just realized. The head of the agency tasked with protecting presidents and former presidents gave in to relentless pressure today and quit. Kimberly Cheatle admitted yesterday the assassination attempt on Donald Trump earlier this month was a significant failure of the agency she ran. Yet she had no answers about why Trump wasn't better protected. And as Eric Sorensen reports, now that she's gone, there are still no answers.
Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson had just announced a task force to look into, among other things, the U.S. Secret Service and its director, Kimberly Cheatle. Just as he wrapped up,
Thank you all so much. Thank you so much.
Word came the director had resigned.
She just resigned? The immediate reaction to her resignation is that it is overdue. She should have done this at least a week ago.
It's been a tumultuous 10 days for the Secret Service, acknowledging it failed in its mission to adequately protect former President Trump the day he was shot.
Very disappointing.
The agency's embattled director was besieged by senators at the Republican convention.
Stonewalling!
And then her 4-hour appearance before Congress simply frustrated both Democrats
I can speak to you in generalities.
No, I don't want generalities.
and Republicans with non-answers about the Secret Service and Trump's assailant.
Was the gun already on the roof, or did the shooter carry the gun up with him?
I do not have that information at this time.
Today, Cheatle wrote to Secret Service staff, "In light of recent events, it is with a heavy heart that I have made the difficult decision to step down as your director." Republicans and Donald Trump are far from satisfied with that. In fact, Trump blames his political opponents, posting online, "The Biden-Harris administration did not properly protect me, and I was forced to take a bullet for democracy. It was my great honor to do so."
Did you get a heads up about Cheatle's resignation?
The Republican-led task force will look for answers and accountability and report back by December. On Monday, Cheatle defied calls to step down.
Will you take those calls to heart?
Her answer to that question, at least, would come less than 24 hours later. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington. He's set to address Congress tomorrow, but is being upstaged by all the political drama in the U.S., and he has yet to meet President Joe Biden. Netanyahu did meet some American family members of hostages held in Gaza for 9 months, and he told them conditions to secure their release are ripening. There is a new agreement between Palestinian rival groups Fatah and Hamas. Leaders of the groups issued a joint statement saying they'll form a national unity government, but gave no details on how or when it would be formed. Hamas has ruled the Gaza Strip for 17 years, and Fatah is the main force in the U.S.-backed Palestinian Authority that administers parts of the occupied West Bank. The deal was overseen by Chinese foreign minister and was finalized in Beijing today following 3 days of talks. In the UK, a gas station worker from Edmonton has been convicted of being a member of a proscribed terrorist organization. Khaled Hussein was arrested when he flew to England last year to meet an Islamist preacher named Anjem Chowdhury. Chowdhury was also convicted today of directing an Islamist group linked to terror attacks in London. As Redmond Shannon explains, the case involved undercover agents and the collaboration of police forces in Canada, the US, and the UK.
Stand back! Stand back!
The arrest of renowned Islamist preacher Anjem Chowdhury in London.
I am arresting you under Section 41 of the Terrorism Act 2000, as I suspect that you are a terrorist.
Chowdhury has now been convicted alongside 29-year-old Edmonton man Khaled Hussein. Both men found to be members of the terror group al-muhajiroun, or ALM. It is banned in the UK. Chowdhury was also convicted of directing it. ALM has been linked to deadly terror plots, including the separate 2017 attacks on Westminster Bridge and here on London Bridge, which left 13 people dead, including one Canadian. Police from London coordinated with New York's NYPD and the RCMP to build the case.
And it's a sign of how healthy our relationships are, that we can collaborate almost in one investigation across international borders and jurisdictions.
Previously, Chowdhury spent time in prison for encouraging people to support Islamic State. He was released in 2018. 3 years later, he began online lectures to a group called Islamic Thinkers Society, or ITS. Prosecutors said it was simply a US branch of ALM. The RCMP, meanwhile, found Hussein was an active online member.
Hussein's role in this was essentially writing these documents under pen names and getting it out to the worldwide community. He had to have authority from a higher person, and that's why we're highlighting his relationship with Mr. Chowdhury here.
Hussein told undercover RCMP agents that ALM and ITS were essentially the same group. When he revealed he was flying to meet Chowdhury, police acted and both were arrested.
The significant element of this investigation is that it disrupts the radicalizer himself, rather than focusing on the foot soldiers.
Both men will be sentenced next Tuesday. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
The number of asylum seekers in Canada hits an all-time high. Coming up, the federal government's solution and whether it's working. Plus, is she about to perform again? Rumors swirling about Celine Dion, who's just arrived in Paris. The federal government has approved a tentative deal with workers at the Canada Border Services Agency. The 4-year agreement applies to about 11,000 employees. It includes a 12% wage hike and a $2,500 bonus. The number of people seeking asylum in Canada has reached new highs this summer. The influx of people is one of the thorniest political issues between the federal government and the provinces. The federal government did make some policy changes to try to crack down on how people enter Canada. Tonight, Mackenzie Gray looks at whether those changes are working.
The laws of Canada.
It's a moment millions around the world dream of.
Congratulations, you're now Canadian citizens.
And a new record number of asylum seekers are willing to risk it all to come to Canada.
Canada can't really control the number of folks that are coming in and making claims for refugee asylum.
Those claims reaching record numbers in June. Over 18,000 people sought asylum in Canada, according to the Immigration and Refugee Board, increasing the backlog of claims to nearly 220,000, a whopping 291% increase over the past 2 years. A long-term trend not expected to change anytime soon.
I don't think Canada is ready for any more numbers. I don't think Canada is ready for the numbers that we have now.
The federal government has made major immigration policy changes, but the situation has continued to deteriorate. Since Roxham Road in Quebec was closed in March 2023, the refugee backlog has jumped nearly 135,000, and nearly 70,000 asylum claimants have come to Canada since this February, when the immigration minister suspended visa-free travel from Mexico.
Most asylum claims from Mexico are either rejected by the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada or withdrawn or abandoned by the applicant, and so a change was needed.
Between 60 and 70% of applicants are granted refugee status, a process Mark Miller has tried to speed up by providing nearly $750 million to federal agencies like the Immigration and Refugee Board, but it's likely to only make a dent in the issue.
I would think they would have to increase their number of decision makers threefold beyond what they have now.
And it's not just the IRB needing help. Provinces and cities have asked the federal government for billions to house and feed refugee claimants.
They're dragging their heels. We're having to beg them every day for funding for the asylum seekers.
Provinces may need even more money if Donald Trump is re-elected, Donna, with experts saying the former president's plan to deport up to 20 million undocumented people could lead to a flood of new refugee claims here in Canada.
All right, Mackenzie in Ottawa, thanks. Still ahead, what led to the death of a polar bear at the Calgary Zoo? When a polar bear died at the Calgary Zoo, it made big news, and now the zoo has revealed what happened. A 7-year-old polar bear named Baffin drowned in a pond Friday morning. The zoo says a necropsy has revealed the bear's trachea was crushed while he was play fighting with his companion polar bear, Siku, and he failed to surface from the water. Staff say the behavior of the two bears was normal and that kind of play happens naturally in the wild. In Ontario, 18 people have been arrested, including 3 teenagers, after multiple violent home invasions, armed robberies, and carjackings.
12 stolen vehicles valued over $1.2 million were recovered, in addition to $55,000 worth of stolen property.
The investigation, dubbed Project Warlock, was launched in January after police linked a series of robberies to an alleged organized crime network. Investigators say the crimes targeted high-end vehicles and luxury items. Some of the victims were seriously injured, and more than 150 charges have been laid against the suspects. Next, Mike Armstrong spins a yarn you won't want to miss. Look who surprised her fans in Paris today. Celine Dion has landed in town, and rumors are swirling she's performing at the Olympic opening ceremony on Friday. It would be her first public performance since being diagnosed with stiff person syndrome. The French President Emmanuel Macron would not confirm or deny the rumors, but did say he would be immensely happy if Dion does perform. Creating a successful company is tough enough. Holding on to it for 100 years is a milestone most don't even come close to. A Montreal family is celebrating a century in business this summer, still going strong after weathering wars, the Great Depression, multiple recessions, and a shrinking industry. As Mike Armstrong reports, the company is run by a third generation with a fourth ready to take the reins.
So the product starts at the bottom, goes up,
As a boy, Jack Schachter admits this wasn't where he hoped to end up. He says he was lucky. After university, not sure what to do, someone pushed him towards the thread business and didn't leave him much choice.
My late father looked at me one day and he said, I think it was a Friday, and he said, Monday you're coming to work with me. And I've been here ever since.
Now that was 40 years ago, which would be even more impressive if his two cousins, his partners, hadn't been around even longer. Hershey Schachter was always fascinated with the family business. Instead of resisting, he was all in, early.
When I was a kid, I would come here as a child and wander around and learn about things. We don't have blood in our veins, we have thread. My grandfather is here.
Back in 1924, Aaron Schachter bought a small company, Canadian Sewing Supply. They bought thread from manufacturers and resold it to tailors and sewing shops. In 1950, they started producing their own threads, and they changed their name in the 1970s to Canso. 3 generations in, each has had challenges.
Different times there were shortages of product, shortages of labor, shortages of input materials. You know, a lot of sleepless nights in 100 years, but thankfully we're still here.
Well, we figured out how not to kill each other.
Now, there's no shortage of jokes or pride in the company. The Schachters say they've been able to feed their family, but many others as well. For some of their employees, it's been the only job they've ever had.
One of my assistants just retired after 44 years, the same day as someone else retired after 54 years.
Yeah, it was all cotton thread in those days.
The family keeps a small box of archives they sift through from time to time. Well, they're now doing it with a member of the 4th generation, Hershey's son, Leslie. There are a few other members of the family they're hoping join as well, but they're trying not to put too much pressure on them. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
That is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Cove Island Lighthouse near Tobermory, Ontario. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.